Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Plus free premium delivery with any smart bed and adjustable base. Ends Labor Day. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
It's Saturday the 30th of August. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw reform stoke up the immigration rhetoric. Israel condemned for attack on journalists, Russia condemned over Kyiv attacks, and huge news from Taylor Swift and much more.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
This week saw the pressure on the government over immigration continue. The current crisis was kicked off by a court injunction against the Bell Hotel in Epping on planning grounds, and the Home Office went to court this week to appeal the decision. The government announced that the Home Office is continuing its work of reforming the immigration system, with a new panel of independent adjudicators to be appointed to deal with asylum claims and appeals. In the meantime, there are still 32,000 asylum seekers in hotels, although Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has pledged to end the practice by 2029 and says there will be a huge surge of hotel closures in the new year. Speaking to Good Morning Britain, the Tory MP Lewis Cocking seemed to have forgotten that the immigration crisis started under his party in government.
The government shouldn't be appealing this decision. They stood on a manifesto to close asylum hotels, and now we're in this bizarre situation where the government is taking their own manifesto through the courts to say, actually, we want to overturn this decision. That is a bizarre thing.
Tuesday saw the man largely responsible for Brexit, which sparked the current immigration crisis, pledged to take radical action to deal with the issue if the Reform Party are elected at the next general election. Nigel Farage made a speech which saw him pledge to use RAF bases to house migrants and threatened to sign deals with third-party countries, including Afghanistan, currently ruled by Taliban. More concerningly, he continued to ramp up far-right troops, including referring to the migrants arriving as largely undocumented young males who would pose a threat to women and girls.
I fear deeply that anger will grow. In fact, I think there is now, as a result of this, a genuine threat to public order, and that is the very last thing that we want.
There was widespread condemnation of his plan, which seemed light on detail and included impractical suggestions like leaving the ECHR and ripping up the UK's human rights treaties. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch accused him of recycling her own party's immigration rhetoric, including the Rwanda plan, while Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey of pretending to be patriotic. Green Party MP Ellie Chowns says his speech was just more incitement to violence.
This is yet more toxic, inflammatory, dangerous rhetoric from Nigel Farage. This isn't a plan to deal with the issue. This is stirring people up.
The Labour Party pushed back on Reform's new immigration plan on Wednesday. Nick Thomas-Symonds is Minister for EU Relations, and he was highly critical of the rhetoric from Reform, but also said that the government takes Farage's party more seriously than the Tories.
At the moment, that is the case, because the Conservatives are essentially, well, they're like a party that simply has nothing to say. They're not on the pitch. And so this is the position that there is in British politics at the moment.
Nigel was busy in Scotland accepting the application from former Tory member of the Scottish Parliament, Graham Simpson, who is throwing his hat in with Reform. There was plenty of questions over Reform's immigration plans, and Nigel backed down on the suggestion that women and children would be deported. However, he was firmly against the idea that Reform is just a new version of the Tory party.
I'm absolutely not going to allow this to become the Tory Party 2.0. And I'm not going to be a vehicle for those just to rescue their careers in Parliament.
Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey has been making plenty of headlines this week as he's spoken out on Gaza and on the latest proposals from Reform to deal with immigration. Sir Ed has politely but firmly declined an invitation from His Majesty the King to attend the state dinner that is due to be held for Donald Trump in September. It's not because he's allergic to cheeseburgers. He's trying to make a serious point about the ongoing war in Gaza and Trump's failure to use his influence to stop it. Thursday also saw him speak out against Reform's grand plans to reform the immigration system, which of course was tipped into chaos by Brexit.
The truth is, that Nigel Farage and the Conservatives are to blame for the small boats crisis. Prior to pulling out of the EU, we had a returns agreement with every single European country. That acted as a really strong deterrent and prevented this. Nigel Farage should be apologising.
Israel was widely condemned on Monday for a strike on the Nasir hospital in Gaza, which killed 5 journalists and at least 15 other people. The twin strike, which appeared to be what is known as a double tap, is used by Russian forces to kill first responders and, if it was intentional, would be seen as a war crime. Foreign Secretary David Lammy was amongst those condemning the strike, saying he was horrified and calling for immediate ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a statement saying that Israel deeply regrets what he described as a tragic mishap. The journalists killed worked for Reuters, AP and Al Jazeera. A managing editor of Al Jazeera, Mohammed Mowad, paid tribute to his staff member, Mohammed Salam.
So we're talking about a crime against journalism, against journalists committed again. Mohammed Salama, who was a very dedicated and brave photojournalist who reported since the beginning of this war.
Tess Ingram from UNICEF said now that a famine has officially been declared in Gaza, Israel must act on demands for a ceasefire.
They're living through a famine, they're malnourished, they're hungry, they're exhausted and they're traumatised. So again, the best medicine for this famine is a ceasefire, and that's what we need to see with urgency now more than ever before.
A letter was published on Tuesday from over 200 former EU ambassadors and senior diplomatic staff calling for urgent action from the EU over Israel's ongoing war in Gaza. Meanwhile, more details emerged on the double strike on the Nasir hospital that killed 20 people, including 5 journalists. Israel claimed that 6 of those killed in the strike were terrorists and that they were targeting a Hamas camera set up to surveil Israel troops. The UN's Human Rights Office has called for a full investigation. Dominique Pradeli, president of the International Federation of Journalists, says a proper investigation is essential.
These ones have been specially targeted because they were giving information to outside media. That's exactly why they've been targeted.
Médecins Sans Frontières emergency coordinator Jérôme Grimaud says Israel has been systematic in its targeting of those seeking to report from Gaza.
3 of them die every day on average since the beginning of the war. There is an attempt to silence every voices that actually speak about the reality of civilians in Gaza.
US President Donald Trump chaired a White House meeting on Wednesday on Gaza, attended by his son Jared Kushner and former British PM Tony Blair. The meeting was intended to focus on plans for a post-war Gaza, but there was still no agreement on a ceasefire, and Israel continues to ramp up its forces for the promised assault on Gaza City. Meanwhile, with a famine now declared in parts of the territory, it's not clear when any ceasefire might take effect. But Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, said conflict could be wrapped up by the end of the year. Former US Department advisor Aaron David Miller has doubts that the meeting will have any significant outcome.
I'm far from persuaded that this is serious. A meeting like this, if it wasn't tethered to a galaxy far, far away, would involve key members of the national security team. I'm not sure a meeting like this would be announced in advance.
Friday marked a week since the United Nations declared that famine conditions had been reached in Gaza, a report that Israel dismissed as fabricated. The head of the UN's World Food Programme, Cindy McCain, said that Gaza is at breaking point and that Israel urgently needs to reopen the 200 aid distribution points that the UN had been running in the territory. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was also warning of the urgency of the situation.
Famine is no longer a looming possibility. It's a present-day catastrophe. People are dying from hunger. Families are being torn apart by displacement and despair.
Well, there is growing pressure in Israel for a ceasefire. Prime Minister Netanyahu is pressing ahead with plans to invade Gaza City. There was also a meeting on Wednesday at the White House to discuss the future of Gaza, but ominously, it didn't appear to include any Palestinians. In a week when there were at least 5 journalists killed, the CEO of the Committee to Protect Journalists, Jody Ginsburg, said it's quite clear what Israel is doing.
Israel does target journalists, not only in this war, but in the preceding decades. To remind us all, journalists are civilians. They are considered so in war and must never be targeted, and to do so is a war crime.
Ukraine celebrated its Independence Day over the weekend with messages of congratulations from world leaders, but fresh waves of airstrikes from Russia. Ukrainian President Zelensky is continuing to push for a head-to-head meeting with Russian President Putin, or at least a trilateral meeting with Putin and Trump, and there's been no sign of progress. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was not sounding positive and criticised Zelensky for calling for a meeting at all costs.
There is no meeting planned. Putin is ready to meet with Zelensky when the agenda would be ready for a summit. And this agenda is not ready at all.
US Vice President J.D. Vance tried to strike a more positive note, saying that Russia has already made some concessions and that they've acknowledged that some form of security guarantee is essential for Ukraine. With Ukraine continuing to strike at Russia's oil infrastructure, former National Security Advisor Lord Ricketts says the writing is on the wall for Putin.
If you look at the big picture, they've really lost badly already. One of the things they did not want was more NATO closer to Russia. Well, they've got Finland and Sweden in NATO now. And they've also got new determination by the Europeans to up their spending on defence and to stand with Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Zelensky met with his frontline commanders on Tuesday and emerged from the meeting calling for a speeding up of the defence guarantees from the so-called Coalition of the Willing. Russia continues to press hard on the front lines, moving troops for an apparent new assault on the Zaporizhzhia region. Russia has made it clear that there is no hurry to engage in peace talks, but Finnish PM Alexander Stubb said it's only a matter of time before Donald Trump's patience runs out with Putin. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Baroness Ashton doesn't see any immediate path to peace.
President Putin is not going to sit across the table from President Zelensky until he feels there's something in it for him. Well, he doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants territory that he's either captured or would like to capture to be retained by Russia, and he's always said no NATO forces. He's been very clear.
At least 23 people were killed on Thursday in Russian strikes on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The targets appeared to include both the offices of the European Union and of the British Council. It was the latest in a series of escalating strikes following the summit between Russian President Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska. Alexander Rodyansky is a former advisor to President Zelensky, and he says it's clear that Russia has no intention of making any effort to end the war.
It's all a charade to some extent when it comes to the talks, absolutely. Fundamentally, it's just a question of who's going to come out on top in this war of attrition, whether economically Ukraine or Russia are going to break first.
The strikes drew strong condemnation from European leaders, with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer accusing Putin of sabotaging hopes of peace, while the Russian ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kilin, was summoned to the Foreign Office. Orisia Luchevich is the Deputy Director of the Russian and Eurasia programme at Chatham House, and she says it's important that Putin is held to account.
It does matter not only that the war stops, but how it stops. And both Europeans and Ukrainians do not want to put another war on the shoulders of the next generations. Russia has to pay the price, and its aggression should not be rewarded.
It was another week of chaos in Donald Trump's administration. Last weekend saw Trump's former National Secretary Advisor John Bolton's house raided by the FBI, presumably searching for classified intelligence after Bolton spoke out against Trump. In Washington, D.C., the National Guard troops on the streets are now armed, and Trump has threatened to send them to Chicago next. And his immigration force, ICE, continued their long-running battle with Kilmar Abrego Gracia, the immigrant who was wrongly deported to El Salvador, then brought back to the US to face what the government says are criminal charges and have labelled him a terrorist. He was freed last Friday pending trial, but ICE arrested him again on Monday and are threatening to send him to Uganda unless he pleads guilty to the charges against him. He spoke outside the ICE centre in Baltimore.
In my ICE checking, promise me this. Promise me that you will continue to pray, continue to fight, resist and love, not just for me, but for everybody. Continue to demand freedom.
Tuesday saw another televised Donald Trump cabinet meeting with Donald running through all of his classic rants. Why windmills are bad, why Joe Biden is responsible for high egg prices, California's water crisis, and how he ended all crime in Washington, D.C. He was also busy once again trying to force the Fed into lowering interest rates, even as inflation looks set to spike. His latest target is the only black woman in history on the board of the US's central bank. That is Lisa Cook, who Trump says he has fired even though he doesn't have the authority to do so and has no apparent evidence of any wrongdoing. Former Bank of England Deputy Governor Sir Howard Davies says giving Trump control of the US banking system is a bad idea.
It is clearly part of an attempt by the Trump administration to control the central bank and to control interest rates. And you can see echoes of that in the UK and in continental Europe already.
Still to come in the Standout 7 in association with Metro. Bad news on energy prices, but good news from Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Right after this.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Plus free premium delivery with any smart bed and adjustable base. Ends Labor Day. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Welcome back.
A Catholic school in Minneapolis was the scene of a school shooting on Wednesday. The attacker, who has been identified as a former pupil of the school, opened fire through glass windows as students gathered for the first mass of the new school year. At least 17 people were injured and 2 killed, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. The attacker was discovered at the back of the church dead from self-inflicted wounds. The shooting has shocked America and its brutality and saw Minnesota Governor Tim Walz speak with President Trump and messages of condolences from Pope Leo. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey was upset and angry about the attack.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
At a press conference on Thursday evening, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara laid out some of the evidence that they had found from a search of the shooter's home.
The shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings that describe the shooter's plan, writings that describe the shooter's mental state, and more than anything, writings that describe the shooter's hate, pure, indiscriminate hate. The shooter expressed hate towards black people. The shooter expressed hate towards Mexican people. The shooter expressed hate towards Christian people. The shooter expressed hate towards Jewish people. In short, the shooter appeared to hate all of us.
It may still technically be summer, but there are warning signs already that this could be a tough winter. The energy price cap is set to rise again, up by 2% for gas and electricity, which will see at least £35 added to the bills for most households. It's another blow to consumers' wallets with inflation climbing. But Tim Jarvis, Director General of Markets at Ofgem, says the rise is also partly due to the expansion in the Warm Home Scheme.
The increase this month is related to the increase in the Warm Home discount, so that's an expansion of that scheme that the government has announced. We've argued in Ofgem for some time for an increase in support for those on lower incomes, so it's welcome to see that.
The government says it's crucial that the UK develops more clean energy sources, and Energy Minister Michael Shanks says the long-term plan for lower prices depends on the success of GB Energy.
And so the only way to do this is to deliver clean homegrown power, but that also gives us energy security because it's power that we control here in this country. It's good for the environment, it's good for jobs, and it helps bring down bills in the long term.
In a quiet week, there was only one story that made headlines everywhere, that of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's engagement. They posted to Instagram, of course, on Tuesday afternoon with the caption, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." The post set new records for the platform with more than 1 million reposts in just 6 hours, and it's racked up millions and millions of views. It wasn't just on social media. Journalists, sports people and even kids in school went viral for their reactions. CBS reporter at the White House, Olivia Rinaldi, got the notification while she was about to do a live piece to camera.
Taylor Swift is engaged. Taylor Swift is engaged. Come back to me. She just posted it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, it's huge. The ring is ginormous. This is so exciting.
In New York, the US Open tennis wrapped up the first round of singles on Tuesday, but big talk on the court was the Taylor Swift engagement. And world number 2, Iga Swiatek, was fully up to speed after winning her first round match.
My team showed me on Instagram. Well, I'm just happy for her because she deserves the best, and Travis seems like a great guy and she seems super happy, so I'm happy for her and I wish them all the best, yeah.
Not to be outdone, Sky Sports F1 channel did a quick poll of all of the Formula 1 drivers before this weekend's Dutch Grand Prix to get their reactions, and Alpine's Pierre Gasly was impressed not just by the news but also by the Insta likes.
Enjoying F1 as well. I think at the time I saw it was like on a 25 million likes, I think, on Instagram.
And your like
so,
as well?
Yeah, of course, my like. Oh well, that's huge. Yeah, a big bombshell, and yeah, very happy for them too. Yeah.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Hey, it's Maya and Sim from the Girls That Invest podcast. If you are an IT or security pro, you know managing devices, identities, and applications can feel overwhelming and honestly risky. That's where Trellica by 1Password comes in. It helps conquer SaaS sprawl and shadow IT by discovering every app your team uses, managed or not. With pre-built app profiles, you can assess risk, manage access, and even optimize your software spend. Plus, it simplifies onboarding, offboarding, and compliance, all while cutting costs by eliminating unused licenses. Take the first step to better security for your team. Learn more at onepassword.com/special offer.